To the risk and behavioural scientist, Dr. Shweta Chakraborty. Dr. Chakraborty, thank you very much for your time today. I just want to get your thoughts, first of all. The news in the last couple of minutes has been downgraded to a Category 2. That is broadly good news, I suppose?
So what's interesting about hurricane categorizations is that regardless of the exact number that is a link to the name storm, there's still going to be impacts in that it's getting closer to the land and that it is that air that is then mixing with the ocean water that is resulting in the torrential downpours that you've just reported on and the storm surges. And so the risk of that is truly flooding. And so regardless of the strength of the storm, it is really going to be the interaction and the impacts as it gets closer to the islands and what that is going to then look like. What's unique about Hawaii, it's its topography. And so you've got, who can forget, the opening sequence of Jurassic Park and just how stunningly beautiful this landscape is. You've got mountains and you've got valleys, and the combination, while stunning, is a double-edged sword. It really creates a lot of potential for flooding. It creates potential for landslides. And so these are the types of impacts that, regardless of the strength of the storm, is going to be something that residents and visitors really need to be wary of.
And depending on where it hits hardest, remote areas on the island, is that going to be a particular challenge for any sort of rescue or relief effort?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head there. And so what we saw in the previous hurricane season in the United States, which really devastated Texas and the Mexican Gulf, and of course Puerto Rico being an island, has been a good example of what to expect for this volcanic archipelago that is Hawaii. The relief and recovery efforts in the United States have been revised following the lessons learned from last hurricane season. And so it's now a lot of emphasis is being placed on really getting that preparation and getting the power up and running so that there's a limited amount of time that those who are most vulnerable and those who are in the most remote areas are going to be without power and then consequently without basic needs. If we can get the power up and running, we can get those relief and recovery efforts to those in those remote areas. And that's particularly challenging in the topography and island state that is Hawaii.
So do you think that FEMA and indeed the people on Hawaii are better prepared than in comparison to Puerto Rico?
Well, yes, and that is mainly because Hawaii has been through so much this year. In January, there was the nuclear attack threat that never panned out, but that false alarm really heightened risk and how people thought about risk. And then we had the volcano Kilauea eruption just happened earlier this summer, and they're still recovering from that. There's a lull in that right now. But that combination leading up to this hurricane and a near miss just a few weeks ago of Hurricane Hector has really created this sense of proactive preparedness. And so FEMA was already on the ground, and a lot of private sector partners generally were already anticipating a hit from a previous hurricane. And so generally, compared to what we saw last hurricane season, there has been advancement and a lot more proactive preparedness this time around. What's unique about Hawaii, which we haven't seen in some of the other hurricane situations in the past, is that the volcano, and there's a lot of speculation around whether or not there will be an interaction between this hurricane making landfall and the fact that the volcano was recently erupting and still
what sort of interaction would that be?
So what the speculation is that possibly there could be some sort of implications for increased laze. Now, laze is that phenomenon that occurs when the lava hits the seawater, and the haze that comes out of that is referred to as laze. And then you have volcanic smog, known as VOG. And so the two of these together could potentially be enhanced or redirected back onto the island. So that is a unique potential outcome of this hurricane that we need to sort of wait and see. We don't have a lot of historical data on this because a hurricane impacting the island state of Hawaii is so rare. The last one that hit was back in 1992. That's 26 years ago. And so there isn't a lot of historical data because this is a rare event. And for that reason, we know what we can anticipate, but we still have to be very open to the fact that there could be impacts that we haven't fully understood yet because we're seeing them potentially for the first time.
Shweta Chakraborty, thank you for your time. Really interesting getting your thoughts on that and your expertise. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next year.